Okay, good evening, everybody. Today I will speak on the very important mitzvah that is in this week's Parsha, Parsha's Terumoh, and last week actually, last Shabbos Parsha, yesterday's, was about also the Hamikdosh. So there's a mitzvah in this week's Parsha that is on the building of the Beis Hamikdosh. Nearly all the, if not all the Moina mitzvahs, the ones that have created the Tayag mitzvahs, have counted also the Hamikdosh as a mitzvah for building the Beis Hamikdosh. The Rambam has counted it as well, but he has made all the elements of the Beis Hamikdosh, like the Mizbeach, the Menorah, the Shulchan, etc., all these scaling as a separate mitzvah. Normally, they always count it as a separate mitzvah. The Rambam says that it does not make sense, but you should count it as one mitzvah, a generic mitzvah of building the Beis Hamikdosh v'chol kelehu. And this is one of his shroshim, how he groups mitzvahs together into one mitzvah in order to be able to control a little bit the number of mitzvahs that we would have in the Taryag. Because if you don't group mitzvahs together, you would end up having tens of thousands of mitzvahs. Just the first 3 pages of the Sefer Vayikro, Parshas Vayikro, you start off, it says so many tzivuyim, so many verbs, that actually it is very much, if you do not group them together, it will not be possible to actually come to only 613. So building the Beis Hamikdosh was part of it. The Rambam is, is one mitzvah, and all the kelim is also part of that mitzvah. The Rambam disagrees with the Rambam, and he holds that the mitzvah of building a menorah is not part of the mitzvah of building a Beis Hamikdosh. Building Beis Hamikdosh is building the walls, the fundaments, and the walls, but the building of the kelim, like the menorah and the shulchan and the mizbeach, those are mitzvahs that should be separate. But why are they not counted as a separate mitzvah? He says it's simply because the mitzvah of lighting the menorah means automatically that I also need to have a menorah. So it's a hersher mitzvah. So of course I have to build a menorah in order to be able to light the menorah. So he holds that all the mitzvahs are part of the mitzvah that are required for them to be performed on them. So it's part of the Hersher mitzvah, on the mitzvah of Maktir Ktoiros, on the Mizbeach HaPnimi, it's the mitzvah of Adlokas Neiros on the Menorah, the mitzvah of bringing the Korbonos on the Mizbeach, bringing the Lechem Aponim on the Shulchan. So those mitzvahs are kind of sub-mitzvahs that are Hersher mitzvah for all of them separately. There's only one keli that does not require any avoid, and that is the Oroin. The Oroin, the only purpose of the Oroin is to put in the luchos from the Moshe Rabbeinu. And so that building of the Oroin to be able to put in the luchos as the Rambam, since apparently that's how we can understand the Rambam, it does not explain it very well, very explicitly, but since there are no avoiders, there are no mitzvahs that are performed on the Oroin, and therefore the building of an Oroin is a separate mitzvah. So he disagrees with the Rambam fundamentally, but it doesn't make a big difference in the number of mitzvahs. But also there is one other mitzvah which he has to add, which is the building of the Oroin, because there is no mitzvah for him, and so therefore it's not it should be counted separately.
But then according to the Rambam,
yes,
if everything is for a Hersher mitzvah, then building the Beis Hamikdosh itself shouldn't be a mitzvah, because it's also a Hersher mitzvah.
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. So, but the problem generically is that you could make one super mitzvah, which is called, you have to do everything that you have to do with the Beis Hamikdosh. And so you have only one super mitzvah. All Sefer Vayikro, you can condense in nearly one mitzvah. And to say you have to do everything that has to be done. I have an answer to your question. So basically, it's clear that you can't do that. You have to split up, otherwise you will never come to 613. Otherwise, you can probably have a Sefer mitzvahs of 30 mitzvahs, right? So you will have everything that has to be done between a bezdin, between two people, to the toin and a nitan, one big mitzvah, and then one big mitzvah, everything has to be done for example, for Beis Hamikdosh, one big mitzvah that are regulating marriages. So you can have one super mitzvahs and that's it. But then you will never come to 613. Chazal said there are 613. So you have to kind of split up and make a little bit more. But since here you build one Beis Hamikdosh for multiple mitzvahs, then this mitzvah is counted. So since the shulchan is for one mitzvah only, since the menorah is for one mitzvah, and so this is a Hershel mitzvah for the lighting of the menorah. And this is how I answered this question that you just asked, is if it is a one-to-one relationship, then you don't count. If it is to one-to-many relationship, that you have a lot of mitzvahs depending on that kli, in that case, you would count the mitzvah of building the mizbeach, for example. That's the question then is why not a mizbeach? Because the mizbeach is indeed a kli which actually serves for a lot of different purposes. I don't have the answer, but your question is a valid question. Sorry. It's clear also that this mitzvah is not a mitzvah for individual. The Rambam says that this is a mitzvah on the tzibur. It means that the tzibur is mechuyev to build a Beis Hamikdosh. The word tzibur requires a group and requires also to be thought a little bit conceptually. What does it mean that the tzibur needs to perform a mitzvah? A tzibur, by definition, is a group of individuals, and as an individual, we should perform the mitzvah. But no, there is such a concept of being a mitzvah that goes to the tzibur, inasmuch that in the time of the Goinim, they did not have 613 mitzvahs, but they had 613 minus 65 mitzvahs, and then they had 65 parshias. And what were the parshias? According to Rabbeinu Sadi Gaon, the parshias were mitzvahs that are not on an individual, but they are on the tzibur. So indeed, in the time of the Goinim, mitzvahs that were on the tzibur were called parshias. The question is, what is the word parshias have to do with mitzvahs? And why parshias have to do with mitzvahs that are on the tzibur? This we still don't have an answer. There is a lot of debate about that. We still don't know really why. It seems a bit mysterious, but Taka didn't call them separate mitzvahs because they were not mitzvahs that are on individual, but they were actually more mitzvahs that were on the tzibur. Today, in modern times, we can a little bit more understand the concept of a tzibur, because a tzibur can be obligated to do something and a tzibur can be punished, as we also have companies. When you have companies, you have a company that has multiple shareholders, and the company himself, which is not a real individual, but it is a group of shareholders, the company can be punished, has obligations to do. So it is really like an individual. And similarly, us as a tzibur, we have, in other words, two obligations. We have an obligation as an individual, but then we are part of a tzibur that has also some other obligations. It's an interesting concept, and I will develop it still for later in another shiur, this concept of tzibur, the chiyuv that is on the tzibur. The next part that I wanted to explain is a little bit something also very interesting. According to the Rambam, the Kedusha Rishono is still Kayemes, is still Kedusha Rishono Kitchel Lebeshate Ule Osedlovoi. So the Kedusha of Shlomo HaMelech is still valid even today. Sorry, I thought I was over it. So the Kedusha of the Beis Hamikdosh is still valid today. And so basically, even today on the Har HaBayis, the same Kedusha is there as it was when it was a Beis Hamikdosh. And so the only thing that is missing are the walls. And the wall is not such a big problem to build a wall. And plus a wall is also not me'akev, basically. The more we learned in Daf Yomi, the walls are not me'akev. So basically, if you really want, according to the Rambam, we have already Beis Hamikdosh. With the Beis Hamikdosh is there already. There is still missing is the kelim, the menorah, the mizbeach. but the Beis Hamikdosh on itself with the Kedusha is there. And so when we look on it from a very interesting perspective, when we look in this current situation as we are today, where theoretically the Beis Hamikdosh is there because the Kedusha is there, and we theoretically can already bring some korbanos on the Beis Hamikdosh. We have already our kibbutz golius. The kibbutz golius has been already kind of fulfilled in a part, and we don't have any more shibud malchios. I mean, we are not under the reign of the Romans or the Greek that are pushing us down. So basically, there is nearly all the ticks that we have for Bias HaMoshiach has been already kind of ticked. And so therefore, the only thing which is still missing for us now is the building itself and the creating of the Kelim and having the Kohanim to bring the Korbanos. So it's a very interesting concept that we have today, because I don't see a lot of barriers that we have in the definition of being already in the Yemos HaMoshiach that we are today. So this is the just for your information, the Ravid is choiluk on him, and he says the Kedusha is not anymore Kanyemes, that the Kedusha is only Leshato, Veloy Losid Lovo. But the Rambam holds that Bashimoy says mit Yeshechem, a fellow that the Beis Hamikdash is not existent, the Kedusha is still there. I will still speak when we'll come to Vayikro with Bli Neder. I will speak about it, why and how can we bring a korban today in the Beis Hamikdash or not. The next point I would like to discuss is who is going to build finally the Beis Hamikdash. So we all remember from Rashi and Tosfos, who are holding very clearly. Rashi in Sukkah, for example, Memalov Medalov, he says, that anyway, the Beis Hamikdash, the third Beis Hamikdash, will be built by Shomayim. Shenema Mikdash Hashem Koinenu Yedecho. So Mikdash Hashem Koinenu Yedecho. The Mikdash of Hashem Koinenu Yedecho will be the result of your hands. And this is also Tosfos also brings it down. So very clearly, the third Beis Hamikdash will not be built by humans, but it will come straight away down from Shomayim. The Rambam clearly does not hold like that. The Rambam says that it is to the Melech HaMoshiach to actually start building the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash will be built by us. So it says in Perik Yud Aleph from Hilchos Meluchim, המלך המשיח עושה לעמוד ולארסם אספדו ותהיושנו ולממשולו הרשנו ובוינה מקדוש ומקבץ נדחי ישראל. So you very clearly see that the Melech HaMoshiach will actually build the Beis HaMikdash. And we also see that we have, for example, in Medrash Rabbah, in Toldos, Perek Sparshe Samar Dalet, he breaks down the story of Rabbi Shua ben Hanania, where the king, the Roman king, or the Roman king, has decided that he allowed the Jews to rebuild a Beis Hamikdash. And there was a whole problem that afterwards the plans got disturbed and they had to consult Klal Yisrael. So this is a story that is brought down in Bereshis Rabbah. So the third Beis Hamikdash was already kind of prepared to be built. There is also, you can check on Wikipedia, there is a certain emperor called Julianus the Apostate, the Koifer as they say, and he is quite famous. If you go on Julian, it's called, Julian the Emperor. He was a Roman emperor. He lived in about 361 to 363 when he was an emperor. And he was a little bit anti-Christianity. And so that's why they called him Julian the Apostate. And he decided he's going to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. So they started to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, the third Beis Hamikdash, but there was a fire, and there was an earthquake. Some claim that it was at the period and there was an earthquake. And so therefore the whole plan stopped, and then he died and the whole plan got disturbed. But there was already starting to build the Beis Hamikdash at two different places. We already started to build the Beis Hamikdash. Also, the Tosefta in Psochim, Peiches, also speaks about Nitim Nohem Yisrael Livnois Beis Abchira. So if the Beis Yisrael received the permission to build the Beis Abchira, and it was between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni, what is the halacha about the Pesach Sheni? Are we going to bring the Pesach Sheni or not? So this is about the Tosefta in Psochim Perek Ches. So you see here also Loshen Nitim Nohem Yisrael Livnois Beis Abchira. So it is something that comes from the humans. We are going to create them. Also in Yecheskel it says, and they will do it. So it seems that the Yecheskel are telling us all the tzuros so that we should know them, and therefore we should build them. So it's also part of it's important for us to know the Yecheskel is telling us all the midos of the Beis Hamikdosh, of the third Beis Hamikdosh, and he's telling us, and then he says that we should know how to do it so that when it comes time that we should do it. So you see here that it's not going to be built by heaven, but it's going to be built by humans. So the question is, what about the Rashi's Rai? The Rashi says clearly that it's a posuk in Oz Yoshir that it says Mikdosh Hashem Koinenu Yodecho. So I found very interesting. There is a Gemara in Ksubas. The Gemara in Ksubas brings down Mamish Mufurish not like that, and it brings down the Gedoyle Maase Tzadikim Yoser Mimaase Shomayim V'Oretz. The Ilu Mimaase Shomayim V'Oretz Ksiv Av Yodai Yos L'Oretz V'Mini Tov Shomayim. The Ilu Maase Yidem Shel Tzadikim Ksiv Muchon Yishivtecho B'Altu Hashem Mikdosh Ad Hashem Koinenu Yudecho. So Muchon Yishivtecho B'Altu Hashem Mikdosh Hashem Koinenu Yudecho. So what does it mean Mikdosh Hashem Koinenu Yudecho? So Mikdosh means the Maase Yidei Tzadikim Hu. So Rashi here explicitly says in Ksubos the Mikdosh Hashem Koinenu Yudecho are referring to the Maase Tzadikim and not to the Maase Yedeya Daim from Shomayim. In the contrary, the whole Gemara wants to bring from that posuk that this means the Maase Tzadikim. So the Raya from Rashi that this posuk is Lechoyim Ksubos Punkt Verkehrt, that it's going to be the Maase Tzadikim and not from the Maase Shomayim. If you want, you can check a bit further also in the Yochini Boyas on the first Mishnah of Meseches Midos, where he also explains the whole machlokes and the whole sugya on whether who is going to build the Beis Hamikdash is going to be humans or is going to be coming from Shomayim, and in the whole sugya there, whether or not it can be built on Yom Tov and in the night, and whether Goy will be building it or it's maybe Goy. We can ask a Goy to build the Beis Hamikdash if necessary, etc. So all this is a very interesting sugya on itself. So as I said, machlokes between Rishonim, if it's going to come down from heaven or it's going to be built by humans. We saw that already historically they were already going to build it, but it got disturbed. The whole idea that I'm already many weeks talking, always repeating the same thing, is that the whole purpose of the Yetzias Mitzrayim was the building of the Beis Hamikdosh, because Hashem wanted a place where he can be dwelling, where he can live. He wanted a place where he can live. So the idea that I'm trying to push here is, and I have a lot of rights for that the whole Beis Hamikdosh is not a schar necessarily. Some would say that it is a schar. So it's like if you behave, then I will live amongst you, which means that there will be what we call tashkoch protis. So it's more a schar and a condition. If you be good, I'll live with you. If not, then I won't live with you. So it's kind of more of a punishment and a reward that Hashem will live with us. And you can learn how I try to push forward is the element of that. No, this is a tachlis. This is the whole purpose. The whole purpose of creating a nation and putting them in Eretz Yisrael, because Hashem already chose Eretz Yisrael as being the land where he wants to rest. And therefore he wanted a nation that has a certain kedusha, so that the kedusha with the kedusha is compatible, and therefore the kedusha of the Shechina can come down and rest, because his purpose wants to rest between us. He wants to live on this world, and so therefore the whole inyan is the Shechamti B'Soichon is the Amanas Kain. So that is the reason why, as Rashi explains, and Ibn Ezra says Mefurish, that the whole reason I took you out of Mitzrayim so that you can build the Beis Hamikdosh. The whole purpose is the building of the Beis Hamikdosh. The idea, as I explained also many times, is that from the moment that normally the Jews went into Golus, L'choire, the Shechina should not go into Golus. Why? Because the Shechina, as we explained, is the part of the Rebbeinu Shalom, which was also the Elokei Yisrael. It's bounded with the borders of Eretz Yisrael. And the Chiddush is that no, the Shechina also is Begelusa. The Shechina comes with us. And where is the Shechina resting? So the Gemara in Brochus, the Shechina is resting in the Beis HaMedrash. The Shechina is resting when people are learning Torah, when a person can rest in kind of even one person in Torah, the Shechina is there. So you see the element that we don't only need the Beis HaMikdash, that the Shechina can also rest in different places. We already spoken on Sukkah, where he rests on the Schach, by every Jew in the whole world. And so there is a lot of different places where the Shechina can rest. And there is indeed it's very interesting, because in the Zohar it's brought down, and it's also brought down by the Rishonim, but in the Zohar it's very explicit that the Rosul Mikdash is not only referring to the Beis HaMikdash, but also referring to the Beis HaMedrash. So there's a mitzvah to build the Beis HaMedrash also in the world. So that's very important. The mitzvah is also to build Beis HaMedrash, not only Beis HaMikdash, because those two are resting places of the Shechina. And not only that, it's very interesting that the Rambam, in one of his letters to his son, he mentions something which is not typically for the Rambam, but he says that the whole Beis HaMikdash is a representation of a human body. So he explains each part of the kelim from the Beis HaMikdash, which part of the body it represents. And so when I always explain that the Shechina even comes within us as human beings, when a person learns Torah, when a person keeps himself with Kedusha and Tahara, and the Shechina comes within us, this is can be understood why the Rambam has to explain that basically the whole Beis HaMikdash is a human being, has a human being structure, as a structure of human being, because basically the Shechina comes within us as well. So even when there is no Beis HaMikdash, then he goes into a real body of a human. I found in one of the Svorim in the Nachal Kadmoinim, he explains, and he says very clearly and explicitly that פירשתי שישתדל אדם לימוד עצמו כאילו הוא מקדוש בעצמו ויוכן האחרונה דלעשות בו כל כלי המקדוש שיהיה רואי לשחוס בו השכינה. ועשו למקדוש, וזה שכוסו ועשו למקדוש, כל אחד בגופו, ושכנתי בסך ויהיה קדושי ממנו. כי יכול אשר אני מר רئיס וסתם לכן תעשו בעצמכם מאין דוגמה. So he explains very clearly also the union of having the Shechina within us, and that we also the Mikdash is we should be holy so that the Shechina can come to us. So with that, maybe we can understand also why the Rambam does not count Kedoshim Tiyu or Kedoshim Yu. We write Kedoshim Yu, which is in Vayikro. There's a mitzvah say Kedoshim Yu. The Rambam says it's not a mitzvah, and we can say, but because it's a generic mitzvah. But then they ask, but Chazal say Kedoshim Yu is that one should assert even what is Minamuterloch. Even things which a person is allowed to eat, for example, he should still try to certain things not to eat. And so this is mefurish, so therefore it's not included in the Taryag. There is a kind of being a little bit machmir on yourself, creating a little bit of borders, extra borders. And why doesn't the Rambam count that as a mitzvah say? But as we explained here, it can be very nice because that's included in the Rosul Mikdash. That the Rosul Mikdash is a generic one. That you should always create a place where the Shechina can come and be. So you should create a place of Kedusha so that the Shechina can come and rest, whether it is a Beis HaMikdash, whether it is a Beis HaMedrash, whether it is a Beis, when you are building a Beis with your wife, then also it is a place where the Shechina rests. If there is Sholem Beis, then the Shechina rests in the Beis, whether it is your own body, when you keep your own body B'Kedusha, that also helps in the bringing down of the Shchina. And this is then one generic mitzvah of creating Kedusha. Any questions? So I will just repeat quickly. So we saw the machlok between the Rambam and the Ramban if the mitzvah of building a Beis Hamikdosh was including the kelim or not. The Rambam holds it's including kelim. The Ramban says it's not including the kelim, but the kelim, according to the Ramban, are included in the mitzvah that you perform with them. There is one mitzvah, therefore, that does not have anything, which is the Orain. Therefore, the Orain, the Ramban adds to an extra mitzvah aseh. We also explained that the Kedusha Rishoinu is Kitchulos Elovoy. So today, according to the Rambam, the Beis Hamikdosh is there already. The only thing that is missing is just the walls. But theoretically, we can already bring the korbanos if we have all the other conditions. So I pointed out that since today we have already Kibbutz Golios, Etzem, we have also Shibud Malchios, the Etzem. We can argue on how much percentage we have, but we're still dependent on other, but still. And then we also have already a Beis Hamikdosh. So what are we waiting for in the next phase? And then we discussed the machlokes between the Rishonim, who is going to build the third Beis Hamikdosh, whether it's going to be coming down from heaven, as Rashi and Tosfos explain, because of the Mikdosh Hashem Koinenu Yodecho, or it's going to be built by human beings, like the Rambam, and also many Midrashim seems to be showing that. As I explained you, there are two Midrashim that says that in two different times, Klal Yisrael started already to build the Beis Hamikdosh. One Midrash and one Wikipedia, I'm sorry, but it was, as I explained you. By the way, it seems maybe that the name Julius and the name Hillel, so the name Hillel that we have, may be a Hebraization of the name Julius, because he speaks about, he brings down, he was speaking about a Jew called Julius, and apparently he was writing letters with Hillel HaZoken, which was not the first Hillel, but it was speaking about Hillel HaNossi, that actually is said to be one of the Miyazdim from the calendar. And in his letter he speaks about, I think he speaks about a Julius. So it could be that the name Hillel is what we have, is the Julius of a kind of an Hebraization of the Greek, the Roman name Julius. But that's something separate. I have not found a lot of resources. I found somebody had also the same remark and posted it somewhere on one of the blogs. So maybe it could be right. Then we saw that the Tachlis, that the building on Beis Hamikdosh is a Tachlis, that this is the purpose of why Rebbeinu Shalom took us out from Mitzrayim, to where he wants to live on this world. We also said that the Beis Hamikdosh, according to the Rambam, is symbolically representing the organs of the human being. So the whole Beis Hamikdosh is one human being, which can explain that once the Beis Hamikdosh is Chorah and the Shechin, we are going into Golos, the Shechina come with us. How does he come with us? Because he can get into the human bodies. So human bodies is also part, it's kind of it can be a receptor for the Shechina. And therefore, the Kedosh, also the Mikdosh, is both building a Beis Medrash, as the Beis Medrash has a Shechina, as the Gemara says, when there is a minyan, and when people learn Torah, there is a Shechina, and then also as the Nachal Kedoimim, not Kadmonim, Nachal Kedoimim explains that the person should be B'Kedusha himself, his body should be B'Kedusha, so that it can be a receptacle for the Shechina in order to come down in him. Any more remarks? I will stop the recording.